Good morning and welcome to St. Andrew's Morning Meditation, Wednesday, July 8th with Amma Susan.
Good morning and welcome everybody. Sorry for the delay. We've had some technical difficulties, and Bill, we welcome you by phone. As we begin the day, we focus on our calling to live faithfully, for who knows what today holds. So if you're able to see your screen, the response is in bold. Holy God, you are always with us.
Open our eyes to your presence.
Tina, would you say the opening prayer, please?
Certainly. God of faithful surprises, throughout the ages, you have made known your love and power in unexpected places. May we daily perceive the joy and wonder of your abiding presence and offer our lives in gratitude for our redemption. Amen.
Amen. Our praise is also a response, call and response, and your response is in bold. All you works of God, bless your Creator.
Praise God and glorify God forever.
Let the wide earth
bless the Creator.
Let the arching heavens
bless the Creator.
Let the whole body of God
bless the Creator.
Sorry, I forgot to bold that.
Praise God and glorify God forever.
You returning daylight,
bless your Creator.
Twilight and shadows,
bless your Creator.
Embracing darkness,
bless your Creator. Praise God and glorify God forever.
Let all who live and grow and
breathe
bless
your Creator.
Praise God.
Praise God and glorify God forever.
So, Bill, are you unable to see the text?
I have my copy on my screen.
Okay, then would you please read the gospel lesson?
I will. This is from Luke chapter 24, verses 28 to 35. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us when he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour, they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road, and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread.
Thank you, Bill. So for today, we are looking at Priscilla and Aquila, co-workers of the Apostle Paul. This is their commemoration day, July 8th. And this information is mostly from Lesser Feasts and Fasts 2018. For those who can see, there are some icon images of Aquila and Priscilla. When Paul came to Corinth, probably in the year 50, he met Priscilla, or Prissa, and her husband Aquila, tent makers by trade like Paul. They were Jewish. They had just arrived from Rome, from which city Emperor Claudius had recently expelled the Jewish community. The Roman historian Suetonius tells us that Claudius expelled the Jews from Rome because they were rioting on account of someone named Chrestus, presumably referring to disputes between the Christian and non-Christian Jews. It isn't clear whether Aquila and Priscilla were already Christians before meeting Paul or were converted by his preaching. After 18 months, the three of them went together to Ephesus, where Priscilla and Aquila remained while Paul continued on to Antioch. Soon after, a man named Apollos, he's also a big figure in the Bible, came to Ephesus, who had heard and believed a portion of the Christian message and was promoting that belief through an eloquent preaching based on a thorough knowledge of the Hebrew scriptures. Aquila and Priscilla befriended him and explained the gospel to him a little more fully, after which he continued to preach with even greater effectiveness. Priscilla and Aquila were apparently in Rome when Paul wrote to that congregation, and in Ephesus with Timothy when Paul wrote his last letter to Timothy. And when Paul wrote to the Corinthians from Ephesus, he joined their greetings with his own. Clearly, they were very dear to Paul and were earnest and effective in spreading the good news of Christ and his saving work. Altogether, this is pretty amazing, considering how short the New Testament is. Aquila and Priscilla are mentioned 6 times in the New Testament, in Acts, Romans, Corinthians, and Timothy. And the reader will note, this is really interesting, the reader will note that in the odd-numbered mentions, Aquila's name comes first, and in the even-numbered mentions, Priscilla's names comes first. As if to emphasize that they are being mentioned equally.
Even, yeah.
Now, there's a little extra info here by James Kiefer that I found. In 1 Timothy 2:12, Paul writes, "I do not permit a woman to instruct or command a man." I actually came up against this before I came into the Episcopal Church. When I was in the Baptist Church, they would only let me teach Sunday school. Jerome, writing over 3 centuries later, mentions a woman he knew, the Lady Paula, who was well equipped to discuss theology and scripture, but who in discussions with men, instead of simply saying what she thought, which would provoke, controversy and agitation, she would just very innocently remark, that reminds me of something I once heard a man say. His opinion was that, and then thus she avoided the appearance of being a woman teaching a man, and yet she got her point across. But I think the more important thing here is to know how a person in any situation, whether man or woman, can of course convey a thought or a point without agitating the person they're trying to convey that information to. It's very skillful, interaction with people, how to convey information without provoking. And now, the Greek word gyne can mean either woman or wife, and the Paul, aner, or andro, can mean either man or husband. So thus, Paul may have meant, I do not permit a wife to teach or command her husband. In interpreting his meaning, it's worth noting that we're told that Priscilla and Aquila acted jointly, instructed Apollos in the gospel, and there's no hint in the text that Aquila did all the talking, while keeping Priscilla hovering in the background, supplying them with sandwiches and coffee.
Of course.
And then there's this other interesting little note that Priscilla is the diminutive form of Prissa, just as Johnny is the diminutive form of John. So it's like a term of endearment or affection, and more familiarity. Diminutives are more common in many foreign languages than in English. They can denote affection or distinguish from an older person, especially a relative with the same name. So I give you all that information because I was pretty excited thinking about how, if we can think about companions now, every day we're on here, we have the equivalent of Aquila and Priscilla with Tom and Tina. A package deal.
There you go.
And then I think all of us in some form or other have a traveling companion who we don't do this solo. We don't do our ministry. We can't be Christians all by ourselves. We have to have traveling companions who help us on the way. And what was interesting is when Bill was reading the gospel, I noticed that it was the 11 and their companions, which I'd never really caught before, the word companions there. Like I pictured the 11, but I didn't hear that word in companions. So our wisdom circle for today is two questions, one or the other or both. Who do you turn to as a traveling companion on the road to Jerusalem? And how do you share in the breaking of the bread? Which you can think of very broadly too. So I'm gonna start with Sandy because I'm going up and then I'm gonna get to Bill when we get near E&T. So Sandy, thoughts?
Yes. Traveling companions. Yeah,
Puppy.
I find our morning meditations are definitely very helpful for my traveling companion through the day. And I kind of take that thought with me because I always pick something up in the mornings and I find them very comforting. So I would definitely say that you, quote all, have been my traveling companions. And I find that very rewarding and helpful.
Well, thank you, Sandy. Gail, would you like to share?
Sure. My traveling companion is, of course, my husband, Dwight. And I am not a good traveler, so he helps me to get through it. Traveling in the car isn't just one way of traveling. I travel outside. I travel around the house, but if I'm outside, he's right by my side. So
I'm thinking, Gail, more about like our companions, not literally traveling, but being with us.
Spiritually.
Yeah, spiritually.
Well, spiritually would be like Sandy said, because on the days I'm here with you guys, I mean, this is when I do my spiritual time, and then I do some after we get off our services, and I have currently started going through the old services and listening to them.
Oh.
I enjoyed your Spock one, Tina. And those are the ones I missed, which I was upset about missing, but I'm going through those, and spiritually they're my companions right now. This week I've been doing that. Is that what you're looking for?
That's great. Thank you. That's really, really great to hear. I'm glad that we can be companions virtually.
Yeah.
So, Tina?
I hear what Gail's saying. I think that, and Sandy also, that the group of us that have been in this from the beginning have really traveled this path for the last several months.
Together.
And I think Tom and I have joked to each other that we've never spent so much time in church in our lives as we have since we've been Zooming. And I think that it would leave a big gap for me if we didn't do this. I've learned a lot of things about all of you, and I've also learned a lot about church history along the way. And it's really become an important part of my life.
Thank you, Tina. Tom?
So 6 o'clock Sunday morning on MPBN is Heart and Voice. And that starts our week. And sometimes it's 6:10, and sometimes Tina's with me, and sometimes she comes in a little later. But that is it's a church musical service talking about what's happening on that particular day or that particular week. So that starts it. And then when I listen to these meditations and morning prayers twice, once right now and once when I'm editing them to make them shorter, get rid of some of the glitches we have, that's my meditation. And then when I'm out again, and it's a broken record, but when I'm out driving my tractor and the old diesel is just a roaring in my ears, that's my meditation too. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that we are part of your meditation along with your tractor.
But you notice you came first.
Yes, I did notice that.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Just checking.
So is Bill with us? Bill, can
He
you
is.
share?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. 1 o'clock this morning, when I had a hunger attack, came down and found your meditation for the day, Amma Susan. I thought, wow. And I immediately thought of two companions on my journey. One, Joyce, is still very much with me. And my mantra, what would Joyce do, has never gone without an answer. The other set of companions, I kind of have a focus on helping everyone I know and meet and talk with to become their best selves. And so whoever I'm with is a companion on the journey, and my focus is listening well enough to help them move toward becoming their best selves. So I guess the whole world is my companion.
And thank you, Bill. And I also hear in that, I know you didn't state it, but I hear in that your companions are also mutually helping you in that process to become your best self too.
Absolutely correct. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, obviously you all know that, so Jim would be with us actually on Wednesdays if he weren't out the door at 5:30 for work. But he and Sophie are definitely my spiritual traveling companions, along with all of you every day. And my whole, it's kind of like Bill said, anybody who, comes into my circle during the day, or I go into their circles, however you want to look at it. I think there are companions that filter in and out irregularly, and then there's companions like you all that are part of my daily traveling, and I feel very blessed to be with you all and to have your company on the journey. So
I'm gonna really miss this when we don't do this anymore.
well, maybe once things kind of change, the landscape changes, and we're having regular Sunday services, I don't see why we can't continue in some form, and we'll figure that out. So
Yay.
I don't think we'll just, sever this completely. So I just want to say thank you, and I think it's time for us to move on now to did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Okay. As we turn to our prayers, I'm going to ask Gail if you'll lead us in this portion of our prayers.
Certainly. As we turn to the tasks before us this day,
Fill
Fill
us,
us,
gracious
gracious Lord.
in making faithful choices, great and small,
Guide
us,
Guide us,
gracious Lord.
as we seek to notice and serve those in need.
Teach
Teach
us,
us,
Teach us,
gracious Lord.
Add any intercessions or thanksgivings. I'm thankful that the Hatfields had a peaceful goodbye to Marie, and we'll be saying goodbye to her tomorrow during this time. They're going to have a Zoom funeral.
Prayers for all. Yeah.
Prayers for Mom and my brother, and prayers for all that are sick and fighting this COVID, and prayers for those who are out on the streets, hopefully not doing bad things. Just prayers for the world.
Prayers for the children as they face uncertainty, and the teachers and the parents for the upcoming fall schedule. They'll figure that out.
Thanks for my home, my family, where I'm safe.
Amen.
Give thanks for our brother-in-law testing negative for COVID.
Thanks be to God.
Yes.
All right, as we offer our lives to you,
Hear us, gracious Lord.
with our hearts ready to serve,
Accompany us, gracious Lord.
may we pass through the day inclining ourselves towards companion who accompany us on the way, always with our hearts oriented to you, O Lord.
Who knows no other Lord.
Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Together, let us say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
Father,
who art
who
in
art
heaven,
in heaven,
hallowed be thy
thy
name.
name.
Thy kingdom
Thy
come,
kingdom come,
thy
thy
will be
will
done
be done
on
on
earth
earth
as it is in heaven. Give us
Give
this
us
day
this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
For
For
thine
thine
is the kingdom and the
and the
power
power
and the
and
glory,
the glory,
forever and ever.
forever and
forever
ever.
and ever. Amen.
Together, let us say the closing prayer. Holy One,
Holy One,
in
in
love,
love,
You
created
created
us
us
and called
and
it
called
good.
called
it
it good.
Grant
Grant
us
us
the
the
deep
deep
wisdom of your love,
love,
that wherever
that wherever
this
this
day
day
leads,
leads,
our lives
Our
remain
lives
rooted in your
remain
goodness.
rooted in your
in your
goodness.
Through
goodness.
Jesus Christ,
Through
our
Through
Jesus
Lord.
Jesus
Christ our
Christ, our
Lord.
Lord.
Amen.
God's power working in us.
Does more
That's
than
more
we
than we
imagine.
imagine.
Glory
Glory
to
to God.
My friends, the peace of the Lord be always with you.
And also with you.
God's
Peace,
peace.
peace,
God's peace, Bill.
peace.
Peace,
Love
Sandy.
you.
Gail,
Peace, everybody.
Peace, everyone.
Tina, and to all of you who might see this another time, God's
Yep.
peace.
Peace, peace. Love you.
The blessing of God, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God and of his Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.